You guys wanted a deep dive on the whole Ruby Franke situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, this one's really got me thinking. We've all seen family vloggers out there right now.
Right.
But the whole 8 passengers story, it takes this dark turn that it makes you look at the dark side of online fame, especially when kids are involved, you know?
Yeah.
Millions of subscribers, billions of views, and then you get allegations of abuse, this controversial therapy program, and a criminal conviction. It's a lot.
Yeah. No, it really is. It's a story that, it kind of unfolds like a cautionary tale. And it reminds us, like, how this seemingly perfect world that's presented online can be just a total facade.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going way beyond just the headlines, right?
Sure.
We're going to unpack all those early warning signs that maybe some people missed.
Yeah.
We're going to dive into the psychology of why we get so drawn into these families' lives in the first place. And we're going to explore some really tough questions about responsibility for the creators, for the platforms, and even for us as viewers.
Yeah, you said it, because this isn't just about one family, right? This raises questions that are relevant to anyone who engages with online content, especially content that features, children.
Okay, so let's take it back, rewind back to the beginning. 8 Passengers, launched back in 2015. It was showing the Franke family's daily life, 6 kids, tons of activities, and they really had that picture-perfect image. But then, around 2020, things started to shift. Viewers started noticing these incidents that raised concerns about Ruby Franke's parenting methods.
Yeah, I mean, one incident that really stands out is the situation with Ruby's son. He was 16 at the time, and he was made to sleep on a beanbag for 7 months as punishment.
Wow.
7 months.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just, a disciplinary measure. This was a public display. And it caused a lot of controversy. Think about the psychological impact on a teenager, the potential humiliation, the message it sends about his place within the family.
Absolutely. And then there was that time when she sent her 6-year-old daughter to school without lunch, supposedly to teach her responsibility. But I think, a lot of people saw it as neglectful and potentially even harmful.
Yeah, definitely harmful. And these incidents, they sparked a public outcry. Petitions were circulating online accusing the Frankes of child abuse and demanding investigations. These weren't just isolated incidents, They pointed toward a concerning pattern of behavior.
Right. And, it's so easy to get caught up in the narrative of a family vlogger, especially when they're presenting this idyllic image, like you said earlier. But these incidents, it's like they were cracks in that facade, right? Hints that something wasn't quite right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is that even with those red flags, the channel continued to grow, which really demonstrates the power of these parasocial relationships, and the potential for viewers to just completely overlook warning signs when they feel connected to a creator. You know?
It's true. It's true. And then things kind of escalated when Ruby partnered with Jodi Hildebrandt, who was a licensed therapist, right, to create this Connections program. What was that all about?
Well, on the surface, Connections, it was marketed as like a mental health coaching program.
Yeah.
But its methods were a little unconventional, to say the least.
Okay, yeah, how so?
It really emphasized strict obedience, control, and a rigid adherence to its principles,
And didn't it also seem to coincide with even more increasingly severe disciplinary actions within the Franke family?
Yes.
It's like the program's philosophy was bleeding into their parenting style.
Exactly. And it's important to note that Hildebrandt's therapeutic license was eventually revoked. And the program itself faced significant criticism for its potentially harmful practices. It wasn't simply about offering support and guidance. It appeared to advocate for a very specific way of thinking and behaving, which may have had a very detrimental effect on the Franke family dynamics.
So we've got all these warning signs, we've got this controversial therapy program, and then August 2023. It's almost hard to believe what happened next.
I know, right?
Yeah.
This is where the story takes a really harrowing turn, Ruby's 12-year-old son, he managed to escape from Hildebrandt's residence. He went to a neighbor's house, emaciated, with duct tape covering open wounds. It's a chilling image that highlights the severity of this whole situation.
It breaks my heart to think about what that child went through. It makes you wonder what was happening behind closed doors, beyond the carefully curated world of their YouTube channel.
Yeah, I know. And unfortunately, the situation was even worse than initially thought. When the authorities arrived, they also found Ruby's 10-year-old daughter at the same location, also malnourished and showing signs of abuse. Both children were hospitalized. And their conditions, they were just a testament to the neglect and mistreatment they had endured.
It's hard to reconcile those images with the happy family that was portrayed in their videos. Makes you question everything you thought you knew about them.
Yeah, and this horrifying incident, it led to the arrest of both Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt on multiple counts of aggravated child abuse.
And those charges were incredibly serious. In December of 2023, they both pleaded guilty to 4 counts each, acknowledging the weight of the evidence against them.
Yeah, they did. And their sentencing in February 2024, I mean, it sent shockwaves through the online community.
Yeah.
Each received 4 consecutive terms of 1 to 15 years in prison, meaning they could potentially spend decades behind bars. This wasn't just a slap on the wrist, It was a very clear statement that the justice system recognized the severity of their crimes and the need for accountability.
Absolutely. This wasn't just a case of, questionable parenting choices or whatever. This was a case of abuse, and the legal system treated it as such.
It did. And it reminds us that, behind those curated online personas are real people with real vulnerabilities. And the consequences of their actions in this case, well, they were devastating.
Man, it's just hard to grasp the ripple effect of all of this. You've got the legal consequences, of course, but then you've got this whole family left to deal with the aftermath,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a shattered world for everyone involved. Kevin Franke, Ruby's husband, he had actually separated from her before the arrest even happened. And now he's fighting for custody of their children.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, he's also spoken out, expressing deep regret and taking responsibility for his part in what happened.
Man, that's got to be incredibly difficult for him, and for the children, of course, to process everything that's happened. And then you have Ruby's eldest children, Sherry and Chad, who have actually been very vocal about their experiences growing up in that environment.
Right. Yeah. And their willingness to share their perspectives adds another layer of complexity to this whole story. They actually participated in a Hulu docuseries called Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Franke, which just premiered this week, actually, on February 27, 2025.
I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I've heard it's pretty intense. What kind of insights does it offer?
Well, the docuseries, it really delves into the family dynamics, Jodi Hildebrandt's influence, and this culture of silence that seemed to permeate the Franke household. It raises crucial questions about the impact of family vlogging on child welfare and the blurred lines between public image and private reality.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that what we see online is often just this carefully constructed narrative. And it can be so easy to miss those warning signs, especially when we're drawn into a family story,
Totally.
Yeah.
This case really forces us to confront the potential harms of parasocial relationships, where, viewers develop this emotional connection with creators, and they may be less inclined to, critically evaluate their actions.
Yeah, it's like we're so invested in this idea of this, perfect family that we just don't want to see the cracks in the foundation, or we choose to ignore them.
Exactly. And that blind faith, it can have really serious consequences, particularly when children are involved.
So how do we become more discerning, as viewers? How do we know when to question what we're seeing, especially with so many families sharing their lives online?
Well, that's where critical media literacy comes in. It's about developing the skills to analyze and evaluate the messages that we're bombarded with online. It's about being aware of the potential for manipulation, understanding the motives behind content creation, and recognizing that even seemingly authentic moments can be staged or edited, to fit a particular narrative.
Okay, so it's not just about being skeptical of everything we see, but rather about approaching online content with a more critical eye.
Precisely. It's about asking questions, like who created this content? What's their purpose? What might be left out of the story?
Yeah, and I guess, are there specific red flags we should watch out for when it comes to family vloggers specifically?
Well, one thing to pay attention to is the way that children are portrayed. Are they presented as individuals?
Yeah.
With their own thoughts and feelings? Or are they treated as props to just further the family's brand?
That's a really good point. And what about the language used by the creators? Are they respectful of their children's privacy? Do they acknowledge their children's needs and boundaries?
Yeah, those are all important factors to consider. And it's also crucial to pay attention to the comment section. Is there a culture of silencing dissenting voices? Are concerns being dismissed or ridiculed? That can be a sign that something isn't right.
Yeah, I think this whole case has sparked a much-needed conversation about the ethical responsibilities of family vloggers.
Absolutely. And it's not just about protecting children from harm. It's also about respecting their privacy and ensuring that they have a voice in how their lives are portrayed online.
This whole situation raises some tough questions about the role of platforms like YouTube, too.
Mm.
Like, do they have a responsibility to monitor content for potential harm to children?
That's a complex issue. Platforms, they have, community guidelines and algorithms designed to flag inappropriate content. But they're not perfect. There's a constant tension between freedom of expression and the need to protect vulnerable individuals, particularly children.
So where do we go from here? How do we find that balance between supporting creators and ensuring the safety and well-being of children?
Well, it's a collective effort. Platforms need to refine their policies and algorithms, for sure, but they can't do it alone. Creators need to be mindful of the potential consequences of their actions and prioritize the best interests of their children. And we, as viewers, we need to be informed, discerning, and willing to speak up when we see something that raises concerns.
It's like that old saying, it takes a village, but in this case, it's like a global village connected by the internet.
Exactly. And that global village has a shared responsibility to protect its most vulnerable members. We can't just sit back and hope for the best. We need to actively engage, educate ourselves, and hold each other accountable.
Man, it really feels like we've only just scratched the surface of a much bigger issue here.
Yeah, I agree. And, this case, as shocking as it is, it's unfortunately not unique. There are countless other families out there navigating the complexities of online fame, and there are undoubtedly other children facing challenges that we might not even be aware of.
That's a sobering thought. So, like, where do we even go from here? What can we as individuals even do to make a difference?
Well, I think awareness is a really powerful first step. We need to understand the potential risks that are associated with family vlogging and, online content creation in general. It's not about condemning all family vloggers or anything like that. It's just about approaching this type of content with a critical eye.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about for those who are, already concerned about a particular family or creator? Like, what can they do?
I would say if you see something that raises red flags, don't ignore it. Talk to someone you trust, report the content to the platform, or even reach out to organizations that are dedicated to, child protection. Your voice matters. Even a small action can have a ripple effect.
Right. It's about shifting from being passive consumers to, like, active advocates.
Exactly. We can't just rely solely on platforms or authorities to police the digital world. We each have a role to play in creating a safer and more ethical online environment, especially for children.
This whole Ruby Franke case is it's a stark reminder that the internet can be like this double-edged sword, It can be this powerful tool for connection and creativity, sure, but it also has this, like, dark side that we can't afford to ignore.
Right. And it's a reminder that real lives are at stake. Behind those screens are real families, real children with real vulnerabilities. And we can't forget that.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, and it's clear this conversation needs to continue, for sure. But if we can leave our listeners with one, like, lasting thought, what would it be?
I think it all comes back to responsibility,
Yeah.
the responsibility of the creators, the platforms, and us as viewers. We need to ask ourselves, what kind of online world do we want to create? What are we willing to tolerate? And what actions are we willing to take to ensure the safety and well-being of children in this, digital age?
Wow, those are some powerful questions. This has been a really insightful and thought-provoking deep dive. Thanks for joining us today. And please continue to explore and engage with these complex issues.
Yeah, the conversation doesn't end here. Let's all commit to being more informed and engaged digital citizens,
Yeah.
for the sake of our children and the future of online spaces.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's it for today's show, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you next time.